Mac Power Users, episode 679, Menu Bars, Docks, and Startup Apps. Hello, everyone. This is David Sparks. I am joined by your friend and mine, Mr. Stephen Hackett. How you doing, Stephen?
I'm good, David. How are you?
Oh man, I'm looking forward to this show. We got a really cool thing going on here. We're going to be talking about menu bar apps, startup apps, dock apps, and this is something that we do every 2 or 3 years on the show, and it's remarkable how it changes over time.
I was really surprised, so I went back and looked at our old document because we keep everything. I was like,
yeah.
Because I really thought going into this, man, my stuff hasn't changed. A lot has changed, and so that's been it's been fun to go through this list. But before we get too far, we got some housekeeping stuff. The most important thing is happy birthday.
Oh, thank you, man.
Yeah. So another year around the sun, as they say.
Yeah. I was listening to a friend talk about birthdays and getting older, and he was talking about how, man, I just don't have the energy I used to have to. I don't have that experience. I just feel like a young man still. I don't know. I have a lot going on. I'm super happy and super busy, and it's all good. But yeah, it is a birthday, and that's cool.
That's awesome. A couple other things we just wanted to touch on here at the top of the show. The show is now on Mastodon. So if you've been following along, lots of drama at Twitter. We're not going to go into all of that, but Mastodon has been around for several years, but has really kind of taken off, especially in the Apple community. There have been communities on Mastodon for years, and the Apple community's kind of moved over there, at least in some part. And so we set an account up for the show. It's on mastodon.social, and the handle's just MPU. There's a link in the show notes. And we're going to treat it the way we do the Twitter account, where we publish there if there's anything special going on, like a live show or merch or whatever. And then on Sundays when a show comes out, that account will post, the show title and the link and all that good stuff. So we had a couple of people ask for that, and it was I think it's a good idea. I think lots of people are over there. It's kind of gaining momentum in our sort of corner of the internet. So mastodon.social/MPU. You'll find us there.
Yes, and the feedback email, we've been having a problem. We've had this feedback email for years, and now we get like 99 spam emails for every substantive email.
Mm-hmm.
And it's turning into a real project to manage that. And it you literally have to go through a big stack of email to get anything substantive. So look, we can't do this anymore. It's getting nuts. So we're retiring that email account, and please don't use it anymore. We have a system now for feedback right on the website. Go there. It gets right to us. It doesn't get spammed out. And that's just the way it's going to be from now on.
Yeah. Time for a change. And we're really happy with the feedback form that we've built on the Relay website. That's been a project of mine so far this year. I spent a lot of time thinking about what's the best way to gather feedback. And we have some changes coming to that form, some updates coming that may even be up by the time this episode is up, where you can put in your preferred pronouns. And then if a show has specific things that we're gathering feedback about, the host will be able to go in there and say, okay, like on Upgrade, for instance, if you listen to Upgrade, they do an Ask Upgrade segment and a Snell Talk segment. We don't have regular segments like that, but I do think that moving forward, as things come up, it just gives us more flexibility to have something that we're in control of. So there's a link to that in the show notes as well. And in fact, it's in the link. It's in the show notes every week. It's put there programmatically by our content management system. It's definitely the best way to get feedback to us. And the forums are still there. The forums aren't going anywhere. We're still very much invested in that as well. But it's time for the email address to be sunsetted, as they say in Silicon Valley.
There you go. I feel like maybe we should have a special email feedback category for people writing Stephen to tell him why he should buy the new Mac Pro when it comes out. What do you think? Is that all right?
I think we'll just cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah, I think one of us should get it, and I mean, you have definitely set the precedent here. So
It's for my work.
yeah, exactly. We are all enablers, Stephen.
I know.
We're right behind you there. And also today on More Power Users, I'm going to be talking about my new HomePod. I have thoughts, Stephen. I spent some time with this new HomePod, so we'll cover that later.
I have so many questions.
All right. But today we're here really to talk about docs, menu bars, and startup apps. And I think let's just start in the dock.
Yeah, it's the heart and soul of Mac OS. You know, well, you can hide it, but it is basically ever present, right? It was one of those really big UI elements that came over from Next. In Next Step and OpenStep, they had a dock, and it was very foreign to Mac users. And there was Drag Thing, and there were other takes on this over the years. But in this OS 10 era, which now is like 22 years old, which is hard to imagine, the dock has been front and center for a lot of us. And we're just going to immediately touch the third rail of Mac-based podcasting. David, tell me where you put your dock.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we need to talk about our doc philosophies because you have to have one, right? First of all, let me just say that the typical like nerd statement that the dock should never go on the bottom because the vertical real estate on your monitor is too valuable, blah, blah, blah. I don't agree with that. I think that the dock on the bottom is a perfectly acceptable option if that's what you want to do. However, I keep mine on the left side. And the reason is because I keep my iPad, my status board iPad, below my big screen. And as a result, when I drag down into the dock, sometimes I end up on a different screen, so that's not good. So I actually put it on the left side, and that just works for me. Now, if you have multiple monitors, you need to locate your dock. In fact, the bottom is a great place for your dock because if you have multiple monitors, you don't want to, be moving between screens and hit something in the dock or, try to put your mouse on the dock and end up on another screen. But it's my current situation, and it's been that way for a long time, is the dock along the left side of the screen. And how about you?
Yeah, so mine is on the right side of the screen, and it's been there a long time. Originally, when I started using it on the right, was for a similar reason that I was using multiple displays, 10 or 11 years ago when I first put it on the right-hand side, and it's kind of just stuck there for me. I do want to point out, though, there's this really cool free Mac app. It just came to my attention a couple of weeks ago. I think it's pretty new, called HiDock, like hi, like hello, HiDock. And it lets you do this really cool thing where you can have custom dock settings when you're on different displays. And so say that you're a MacBook Air user and you use your laptop and you want your dock maybe on the side, kind of small, or maybe even hidden. But when you're at your desk with your studio display, you want it always visible and, bigger. HiDock lets you manage that on a per setup basis. It's so good because macOS doesn't have any sort of ideas or controls for, I want my dock to act differently in different situations. And the very thing you said, I think, is why a lot of people put the dock where they put it, because, I'm in a multi-screen setup and I would normally put it over there, but it causes a problem for some other reason. And with HiDock, you can work around some of that stuff sort of situationally. It's super cool. But yes, to answer your question, mine is on the right-hand side.
Yeah, and there used to be terminal commands where you could put it like top or bottom or left or right, and I last time I tried those terminal commands, they didn't work. And I don't know why, and I didn't really investigate into it. It was just one of those moments, and I moved on. But like HiDock does give you the ability to put the location. You can location it on the side as well. So that's cool. And this is an interesting app. I wasn't aware of it before.
Yeah, it's cool.
The other part of dock philosophy is, do you show the dock or do you hide the dock?
Always visible. And I should say for this, because I'm a 2 Mac person, I'm just talking about my desktop today. It was too confusing in the show notes to be like, well, on my laptop I do this, or my desktop I do that. But at all times, visible. For me, one of the things I use the dock for is to see what's running and to drag things into other applications. And there are some terminal commands, or at least there used to be, that you could speed up the animation for the dock coming in. So if it's hidden, you bring your cursor to the screen, that whatever edge of the screen it's on, and then it comes in. And I found that to be kind of annoying having to wait for it, but you can speed it up. At least you were used to be able to. But for me, it is in the man. It's just got to be there on the side and always visible.
Yeah, I keep it visible, but I have a script I run when I start screencasting that does a bunch of things, and one of them is it hides the dock. Because when I'm making video screencasts, I think a lot of people, it's distracting to see all my apps over there.
Mm-hmm.
So often my screencast, it doesn't show up. But then I have another script I run when I finish screencasting, and the first thing it does is unhide the dock. And the way I do that is you can just attach a keyboard shortcut to show or hide the dock in the settings app on the Mac. And the one I use is, I think it's Control Function F10 or F9. But either way, I have, it's part of a Keyboard Maestro script, and it just presses that key combination, whatever it is, and the dock shows up and then leaves again. But so I do hide it when I record, but otherwise I have it there all the time. More philosophy, though. Do you use the dock to launch apps?
I do, really pretty often. If I sit down, I'm just logged into my Mac. I'll go through and open, 6 or 7 apps that I kind of want running all the time that aren't in startup items. And something like, let's take Day One. It's in my dock right now.
Yeah.
I generally will launch apps with Alfred as well, but like Day One being in my dock and me seeing it is like a reminder of like, hey, you should put stuff in Day One sometimes. And so I do keep it visible. And I use it as a launcher, but also sort of a placeholder.
Yeah, I call that aspirational location. I do the same thing with some menu bars too. Things that you want to make sure you use. Like I have Freeform is in my dock, and that's because I've been trying to use it more. But seeing it there helps trigger you to say, "Oh yeah, I need to do that."
Yeah.
The other thing is, do you? I don't launch things from the dock almost ever. I can't think of the last time I did. I always do them with launchers like Alfred, but I still like having them there. And next philosophical question: do you keep apps in there? Well, I guess you answered it already. Do you keep apps in there that aren't running? I mean, some people, the dock is just showing running apps.
Yeah.
But you have apps in there, as do I, that are not currently running, but they're things I want to keep track of or see. What about zooming? I know a lot of nerds get wound up about that one too. Like, do you let them zoom, or do you keep them in their natural state?
No zoom for me.
Okay, I zoom because I've got so many in there. It makes it easier to hit the targets when I go in there.
Yeah, that's fair.
Not an insane zoom though. It doesn't like
a classy
the full
zoom.
Yeah, it's classy zoom. That's it.
Yeah, you can go too far with that. I think it's like gets enormous.
Yeah.
One relative. I'm putting that in air quotes because the dock's been around for over 2 decades. But one relative new thing is that you can have recent documents and or recent applications rather in the dock. And so, for instance, say that I open the Home app and say that's not normally in my dock. It'll hang out in my dock until it gets pushed out by a more recent application. I have that turned off because I found it kind of distracting and like sometimes downright confusing of like what was in the dock and what wasn't. And so I turned that off. Basically, I tried it for a while, then haven't turned it back on.
I don't use it either. I mean, if I want something, I just launch it, so I don't really need that. There used to be another terminal command that would allow you to create, it would create a little widget like in your dock where you could see recently opened apps, recently opened folders, recently opened files. And that died a couple of releases ago, I think, with the Apple Silicon transition. And I don't know if that's just because whatever was enabling it got removed from the terminal or what. But Yeah, there have been historically some things you can do, but I was looking into that as we prep for the show, and you could solve these problems if you wanted to, have more interactive stuff in your doc. Like you could create a recent folders smart folder in Finder and just drag it into the doc and see it. So there are ways around that, but the old, for the old timers that used to do that terminal command, no more.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I think we've covered all the philosophical questions of the doc here. So let's dive in. What's in your doc?
More than you may imagine. I put this list together. I was like, there's a lot of stuff over there.
Yeah.
I guess because I'm on the right side, we're both on the sides. As I start at the top, right? Obviously, we got Finder. Finder's always there. He's always smiling upon us. We've mentioned several times things you used to be able to do to the doc. The doc has been rebuilt several times as Apple has moved forward in their technology, including the Finder logo. In fact, recently I was running some old versions of macOS 10 for something. I was like, oh man, I like the new Finder icon way more than the old one now that we're used to the new one. But it's always present. It's always running. Finder is both an application, but also sort of the overall shell, or not in a technical sense, but like it is Mac OS, right? Like when nothing else is running, you're just in Finder. And so Finder is always in the dock and right up top. And it makes me happy to see my little buddy over there.
You say that, but I remember in the old days of Quicksilver where some of us nerds would run the terminal commands to kill the Finder and try and run all file management through Quicksilver. And yes, I did that once. I did that for like a couple months and realized that was really dumb. And then I put the Finder back. Yeah, I know. Go ahead and laugh. I actually deserve that. Right under the Finder for me is Fantastical. We just covered Fantastical on the show. I love this calendar app. I use a calendar all day, and it puts the current date. So one of the nice things I like is my eyes drift over there and I see what day it is. And so I like that. Fantastical.
That's good. Second down for me is Timery. And this, what was your phrase? Aspirational location. When I started time tracking again, now a little over I don't know how long it's been. It's been a while, over a year. I put Timery at basically the top of my dock, so it was really hard to ignore. And I've kind of kept it there for the same reason. Like, it's not like it doesn't show any status, right? It's just an icon. But having it there, like it's right next to like Time Machine, my Time Machine drive on my desktop, right? It's just right there.
Yeah.
And that has helped me kind of keep it top of mind.
Yeah, good. Put a pin in that when we get to menu bars. I want to talk about that. But cool. Underneath Fantastical, I have Safari, and it's just because Safari is just so, the web is so key to everything I do, and I always just keep that one on top.
Yeah, that's good. Up next for me is reminders. A lot of what I'm doing at my computer is task-based, and having that with its badge telling me what I've got left due in the day, what's overdue because they added that feature for me. It's always, whatever task manager I'm using, it has changed over the years quite a bit. It has always been basically at the top of my dock. Again, for that reason, like it's really important status-wise, and keeping it up high means it doesn't get lost in sort of the shuffle of things further down.
Yeah, makes sense. For me, there is now in my dock a block of what I call comms apps, right? So I guess I'll just list all four of them.
Okay.
Apple Mail, Messages, Slack, and Discord. And they're together because that's where I do communications, and I just like to keep them together. And that's all I got to say about that. With the Apple Mail, I turn off all badging except for VIPs. And so to the extent the badge shows up, it's something I really need to deal with. And the others, like Messages, I turn off all badging. I was thinking the other day, I am so bad at Messages. My family, they get so angry because they text me, but I don't check Messages in, maybe once or twice a day. I'm bad. I probably make you mad too, but I just don't like jump every time the Messages thing goes off. But So I don't do a lot of badging, but all the comms apps are right there. I like having them blocked together in my dock.
It's really funny. Mine is basically the same. So under reminders, I've got Chrome, which is I go between Chrome and Safari. Right now, we're doing a lot of development work at Relay, and Chrome's development tools and some of the things that you can do with Chrome plugins are very helpful for some of that stuff. And so I've been on Chrome for the last couple months. But then I have basically the same block. I've got messages. I've got MimeStream, which is what I use on the Mac for my email. We've talked about it before, this awesome third-party Mac OS client for Gmail. So if you use iCloud email or something else, you can't use MimeStream, at least currently. It's Gmail only. And then Discord and Slack. So again, it's very funny to me, that same sort of communications bundle. Those four in my mind are of a kind. And they're all basically open all the time. And I let messages and MimeStream badge, and that works well enough for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna change that. I'm gonna start badging Slack and messages, because I've realized that I've taken it too far. So I'm gonna try and get better at responding to those faster. But yeah, and to me, they're in order of priority. Although I don't know if mail should be the top priority, but that's a whole nother discussion. But either way, so I've got that grouping. Then I've got my project management grouping, which is Craft, OmniFocus, and reminders, like task management stuff. And we've talked about those apps on the show. Craft is increasingly becoming important to me as I use it to manage projects with team members, and then OmniFocus for personal. And I'm continuing to experiment with reminders. It's just such a great app, and we're using it a lot for shared reminders in the family and things like that. But OmniFocus is still my beloved. And but I put those three next to each other.
Yeah, my organization sort of falls apart at this point. Like, there's like some rough groupings, but as we get towards the bottom, all my audio production stuff is like the bottom third of my dock. But I've got calendar and notes. So I'm, again, like this theme we've been talking about, these native applications, calendars and notes are perfect for me. And I have a lot of shared calendars, a lot of shared notes. And again, two things that are basically always open. In fact, right now I've got a couple of notes minimized in the dock because I'm going to come back to them later. But those two are next to each other. And like Fantastical, calendar puts the date right there in the dock, which it didn't used to do. And then it did it only when it was running. And now it does it all the time. So it's been an evolution to get there, again, as the dock has undergone significant changes as Apple's technology has evolved. But those are next for me. And then this is my next section is kind of organized. Let's call it links, where I have Reader, which is an excellent RSS app for the Mac. I use it on my iPhone and iPad as well, but I really love the Mac version in particular. I've used Reader for a long, long time, but it is right above Good Links, which I use to save links either for just I'm going to read them later, like an article someone sends me and I don't have time right now, or something, I may link to this, or I may want to save this into DevonThink later, but I can't right now. Or, some of these things are also kind of like to-dos. Like I have this one at the bottom to look at. I need to replace the antenna on my truck because I broke it off, and I have the parts, but I have in Good Links at the bottom. It's been there for like a year. The forum post showing you how to do it. That should be a task, but it's not. And it's just hanging out in Good Links. So those, RSS and Read It Later, they're two sides of a coin, as we've talked about before. And so they're next for me.
Yeah. I have made some changes with my RSS. It has nothing to do with the dock, but Readwise has a reader app in beta that is pretty good. So we'll come back to that someday. But the next in my grouping is Day One, which I have moved while you were just talking, because it really, in my mind, is another comms app, but it's comms with myself. So I put that at the bottom of the comms stack. And then below that, I've got like information apps, Obsidian, Freeform, Apple Notes. And so those are ones where those are kind of my notes apps. And I've got those together.
Yeah. Rounding out my sort of links section, I've got DevonThink, which of course is home to my ever growing, it seems like, collection of computer history sources. So it started life as Apple history, but I haven't really branched out in my coverage of other things, but I'm interested in other things. So just like tens of thousands of items saved in DevonThink. It's the only app I found that can manage that sort of data collection in a way that is actually functional. Like I can search across everything. It does OCR. Because a lot of times I'm like importing old PDFs that maybe don't have text, recognized in them. And it's the only tool for the job. And they have an iOS app, which I use on occasion. But in my mind, DevonThink is a Mac app. And it just kind of looking at eyeballing it, it's basically dead center in my dock, which is also kind of funny. But it's in that sort of links section along with Reader and Good Links. And right below it is MarsEdit, which is an awesome Mac app for publishing to several online platforms, including WordPress, which is what I use it for. 512 Pixels runs on WordPress, and MarsEdit is how I publish almost everything that goes on the site.
For me, now it turns into chaos. But basically, I've got drafts there, which I do a lot of writing in. And then I've got a bunch of, I guess, for lack of a better term, utility apps. Text Expander, ScanSnap, Keyboard Maestro, Hazel, Better Touch Tool, Moom, all those show up. And some of those I know I could turn off their dock icons, but I don't mind it. And if I want to get into them, I can. Like one of the things I do with dock apps, which I've been increasingly experimenting with, is since I'm such a big fan of spaces and having like a communication space and a production space, if you right click on an app in the dock, one of the settings you can say is open only in this space, which is a great way to like group these things together. Like a good example is my, that comms batch, mail, messages, Slack, Discord. Those are all on basically space one for me. But I've right clicked on all of them and said only open in this space while they're in space one. So if I hit mail, my computer just flies over there and it doesn't suddenly put, Slack on space 3 and mail on space 2 and messages. So I keep them there so I can like manage them that way. But I've just got a big block of them there that just do a bunch of utilities. Oh, and settings. How did I not say that? Of course, settings is there too. So I've got a group of them there at the bottom.
Okay. Are we at the end of your dock?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, it's also showing open apps that are not on the dock, which is currently I've got MailMate open because I was doing some testing on that for the labs. I got Photos, Home Assistant, a couple things running down below that aren't normally there, but we're at the end.
Okay. I got a ways to go.
Okay.
Some of these we talked about. So day one, we talked about photos I keep in the dock, always have. And that is sort of coupled with music, something else that I always keep in the dock because I listen to a lot of music. Basically, if I'm not recording or editing a podcast, I've got music playing. And so music is there. And then I get to my apps for podcast production. So Audio Hijack for recording podcast or recording ads or any voice stuff I need to do. Audio Hijack is also awesome because you can record application audio. So like on a recent episode of Connected, we were talking about the event from like 2010, like the Back to the Mac event where they introduced like the good MacBook Air and like, touchscreens make your arm fall off. And people have talked about that a lot in their recent weeks because there's rumors that touchscreens are coming to Macs. And it's like, well, what did they actually say? Because like I've heard many people on podcasts like, oh, Apple said this 10 years ago. And so I went back and listened and then recorded it with Audio Hijack and put it in the show. So it's just a Swiss Army knife for audio on the Mac. Zoom, we record over Zoom. All my meetings are over Zoom, so it's there. And then Logic for editing. Forecast is a app by our friend Marco Arment, which I think I've talked about before, but it is a really awesome encoder, MP3 encoder for the Mac. So in Logic, I export a WAV file. Well, I can't send you, the listener, a WAV file, right? I need an MP3. And so Forecast is what I use to create the MP3, to put in the metadata, so podcast title, episode title, the artwork. And then if I have any chapters that need links or special artwork, I can do it all there as well. And then the last audio app is Overcast, which runs on the Mac. It's just the Apple Silicon, like, oh, we can suddenly run iOS apps on the Mac. It's just that trick. Overcast is not awesome on the Mac. I honestly hope that at some point Marco does a Catalyst version. He's on in a future episode. Maybe we can ask him. But I keep it there because when I publish, I want to make sure that everything's okay on the other end. And I use Overcast for that because Overcast is the fastest thing I've ever found in terms of refreshing from an RSS feed for a podcast player. A lot of podcast clients take their sweet time finding a show, and Overcast is really fast. And so I will skim through the show just to make sure all my chapters are there. And, occasionally I've had problems with that. So that's sort of the audio section. And there was a time where none of those were in the dock, and I would just launch them with Alfred. But as I've used them more and more over the years, they've sort of graduated from being launched with the launcher to just basically always being there. And so it's a whole little section there of all my audio production stuff.
Yeah, I forgot to mention in my utility app block, Zoom and Audio Hijack are in there. So yes, I keep those in the dock too.
Yeah, tools of our trade as podcasters. And then anchoring my dock at the bottom is 1Password. I'm in and out of it all the time. I have it at the bottom because it's always in the same place, like smash my mouse in the bottom right, corner of the screen, and 1Password is there somewhere. And again, something that hasn't changed in a long time. It's been the end of my dock for years and years. Before we wrap up the dock conversation, you can also put folders in the dock, and I'm curious if you've got any down there as stacks.
I don't. I probably should. The way I handle that is I've got a bunch of scripts I've written in Keyboard Maestro and AppleScript where I push a button on the Stream Deck and it opens the Finder to a specific location for me. And so that's just never found its way into the dock. I've got, just looking at my Stream Deck right now, because we're recording MPU, I've got a button here that will open me directly to the folder where the recordings go. And then next to that is a button that says send to Jim. And if I push that button, all the files in that folder get copied to him. And then I've got another button that if I press, it shows me the folder in Dropbox where they're copied, so I can confirm that they got sent there. And so all that stuff for me is done with a mixture of Keyboard Maestro scripts, Apple scripts, and Stream Deck buttons, because I'm a nerd.
Yeah, I've got two really just for super quick access anywhere in the system, because the dock's always visible for me. I've got my Dropbox folder. Almost everything on my computer that matters is either in an app that iCloud manages the data, or it's in Dropbox, and I can very quickly, blast around to the different folders I need. And then I have downloads, which back in macOS 10 Leopard, when they introduced the downloads folder, it came with stacks at the same time. So you could have, before that, your downloads, I think they went on your desktop in Safari. Like, it was not good. And so they sort of tidied that up. And I find them actually pretty useful. I mean, especially the downloads, where I could very quickly get to something without opening a new Finder window or disrupting wherever I am currently on the system.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to do that because I used to have the downloads in there, and I'm just looking. There's like there's no reason, like I'm working right now in the Obsidian Field Guide. I'm in those files every day. There's no reason why I couldn't just have it in my dock as opposed to having to go navigate in the Finder or put it on a button. Yeah, you've inspired me. I'm going to change that.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
And like I said earlier, you could make smart folders for those as well. In the Finder on Mac OS, you could say, give me only files that I've touched in the last, 2 days. And then you could have a dock icon that shows you that. So if you're working on projects for work and you just want to be able to quickly see stuff that you've worked on recently, that'd be something you can do. In fact, that's something that I may do.
Yeah, it's really clever when you can combine things in Finder and the dock because they're siblings, right? Like everything in the dock is also in Finder, but when you can bring things back the other way, it's actually pretty cool. And I remember an early example of this in macOS was they put a shortcut to like the support site or something in the dock on all new clean installs of like Panther or Tiger or something. It's like, okay, I don't need a URL down there, but having some folders there, especially if you like wire up some cool smart folders, I think it's a pretty useful idea because you can fully interact with them from the dock. So like in my Dropbox stack, if I go in here and I go into documents, there's a PDF here. If I click on the PDF, it opens it in preview. I never see it in Finder, and it can be a really fast way to get to things that maybe you need access to. But again, like right now, I've got one Finder window open. It's got two tabs. One is my recording, and one is the folder that we'll upload to Jim. I don't want to disrupt that. I don't want to add to it. I want to leave it as it is while we're recording. But if I need to get to something else, I can use again that Dropbox or download stack. And so I find it really useful.
Yeah. While you were talking, I put together a smart folder that is just looking for anything that is a document that has been opened in the last 3 days on my Mac. And it's showing me, the 7 or 8 files I've been working on. We're recording this on Monday, so there isn't a lot in here. And then I just put that over in the dock. And now anytime I want to get quickly to the last few files I've been working on, they show up and I'm already sold, baby. I wrote an Apple script this morning, Stephen, to change the volume in Apple Music. Because just go with me here. The volume dial on your Mac controls all the volume.
Right.
But if you're playing music through your HomePod and you want to lower the volume of that, but not there's just no way to do it with the keyboard commands. You've got to go to the music app and push it. And just a little 4-line Apple script. And I made one that raises it and one that lowers it. And I'm going to put them on Stream Deck buttons and I can solve that niggling problem. But I got a little script here that I worked on in the last 3 days. What a nerd.
That's why we love you.
This episode of the Mac Power Users is brought to you by TextExpander. It's my favorite tool for getting started with automation. It can save you time starting today. Go to textexpander.com/MPU to get 20% off your first year. Now, we've all heard of text expansion tools where you type in a few letters and then suddenly it bloops out a bunch of text for you. Well, TextExpander is that, but plus so much more. TextExpander is developed by a group of people that want to make the best text expansion app on any platform. And TextExpander is on any platform. It's on Mac, Windows, Chrome, iPhone, iPad, and it can do just about anything you want with text. If you want to type just a few strings and it pops a whole paragraph or a whole document out, you can do that. When I was an attorney, I used to do a bunch of contract clauses that way. I would type X attorney fee clause, just that one phrase with no space in it, and it would knock out a whole 2-paragraph clause for me that I would use in contracts all the time. I also use it as MacSparky because it helps me send customer service emails out. Anything I do that's repeated, I put in TextExpander. And TextExpander just doesn't give you the text, it gives you special characters, tab keys, fill-in forms, the current date, the contents of your clipboard. You can do just about anything with this app. You can even run Apple scripts in it. That's how I use TextExpander to fill in the name of recipients of emails that I send. It's just a super powerful tool. And if you've got a team, it multiplies because then your team members can use the same database or the same library. So if you have a customer support thing you want to do, you write the perfect text for it, everybody in the company then uses the exact same snippet. It's a very powerful application. It's also a great on-ramp to automation. Go check it out right now, textexpander.com/MPU. They were the very first sponsor of the Mac Power Users, and we really appreciate that, but they just continue to make a killer app. Once again, textexpander.com/MPU. Get that 20% off and let them know you heard about it from us.
So let's shift gears and talk about our menu bars. I obviously want to talk about philosophies, but
Yes, we have philosophies. Yeah.
I feel like the philosophies are a bit more limited when it comes to the menu bar. I think the biggest thing is, do you use something to hide some menu bar applications? Maybe things that have to run a menu bar item, or things that you don't need it very often, but occasionally you do. So how do you approach that?
Well, it depends on real estate, right? Like if you live in Montana and you got a big farm, it's a bit much different than being in the city, right? And having a little yard. So if you're on a laptop with limited menu bar space plus a notch, I think that changes the game. What is true is that currently we have several tools available to us that allow us to hide menu bar items, and that gives you that option. Now, on my giant 32-inch screen, you would think I would just show them all, but I find it a little distracting, honestly, because I have so many. So I've kind of got to the point where I use Bartender, which I definitely use on a laptop. Bartender is just so good to solve that problem. But I've been using it on my big screen too, and just showing the ones I really need to see and hiding all the other stuff until later. The other thing I find that Bartender does is it allows me to consistently keep things where they belong. In fact, maybe that's the big reason I use Bartender on the big screen, because I kept finding that things were moving on me. Like with the calendar app, I like it to show me the next event, but at one point it'll be on the right side, and the next point it'll be in the center. I want it to stay where my eyes know to go. So I use Bartender. That was a long way to tell that. I also use another app, though. There's a free app called Dozer, and that's like an open source version of Bartender. It's not as good, but it's free, and it allows you to do stuff too. And the problem that I needed to solve was I have the Bartender set up, which is stuff that when I'm using my Mac, but then when I record, I want an even different set in my menu bar, and it's a very small set, because I found that when I had all my menu bar apps and I would record, I'd get all these emails saying, well, what's that do? And what's this do? And then people will say, this is distracting, blah, blah, blah. So I use Dozer when I record, just like I hide the dock. I shut down Bartender and I run Dozer, which is a very limited amount of apps in my menu bar.
Mm-hmm.
And all that's done on a script.
I was not familiar with Dozer, but it looks really awesome. It kind of reminds me of Vanilla, which is a kind of the third app in this category that lets you hide menu bar items. Where in Dozer, you kind of set like the start and end point, and everything outside of that is hidden. Vanilla kind of acts that way, where Bartender is a bit more complex. Bartender is a paid app, but I think if you're on a notebook and you find yourself bumping up against that notch, or even if you don't have a notched MacBook, if you're just running out of space or you want a cleaner look, Bartender's well worth the money in my mind, because it does give you so much more control than some of these others. But Dozer looks really awesome. I'm going to play with this. It was new to me, like I said.
Yeah, and the thing Bartender does that's an improvement is it puts the remaining menu bar items on a second row, which goes right underneath a notch if you've got a notch. So it really solves the notch problem for you. I do wish Bartender had multiple profiles, so I could have like a Bartender profile for recording versus a Bartender profile for, doing work, where you could change the menu bar set based on what you're doing. In fact, I would tie them to focus modes if I could, and really just have it like really customize the menu bar based on what I'm doing. I'm going to write that guy. I feel like I got some ideas for him. But either way, so yeah, that's the first philosophical question. Do you hide it? You have a big screen too. Do you hide it?
I don't on my big screen. Now, if I'm just
Yeah.
on my laptop, I do because
Do you have a problem on your big screen with the menu bar items seem to migrate around a bit?
yeah, they move around.
Yeah.
Especially on like a restart or logging in. It seems like it kind of depends on their launch order, and I don't. It's always been kind of confusing to me to understand what uh, is exactly in control of that. Other than the ones at the end, I basically don't really care what order they're in, but it is something that it can be a bit annoying if you're extremely picky.
Yeah. And, you could run bartender and not hide anything, but get advantage of that feature where it keeps the order right for you.
Mhm.
Now that I think about it, I should maybe try that. But we'll see. It's a tricky problem, and I don't know why Apple hasn't done a better job of that. But like, I feel like if you say I want the calendar on the right and I want the focus mode to the left, it just should be that way.
Mhm.
I feel like it's got worse over the years. This is something, but launch orders probably have something to do with it. And the more things you launch, the more likely it is to get scrambled.
Yeah, it's a bit weird.
Is that the end of our philosophical questions? I think so.
I think
Yes.
so.
Yeah. Desktop or laptop, show them all. Okay, we're good. Let's start talking about what we've got up there.
All right. For me, moving left to right, the first thing is Timery. I let Timery run in the menu bar. I have it set to show me the project that's running and the elapsed time. So right now it says MPU, an hour and 30 minutes. That's when I sat down to record my ads and do my final walk through the document, and I will leave that running through the end of our recording and when I upload my files. And so it gives me, right there, I can see exactly either what I've told Timery I'm doing, or more often than not, what I'm supposed to be doing. And so that's a very useful tool.
Yeah, that feature where it shows you the currently running timer, I think is really good. Like in terms of helping you stay on track with your work, because you look up there and you're like, oh, MPU, I should be working on MPU right now. I shouldn't be, looking at sharpening stones. And then, so that's good. But I'm going to go from right to left, just the
Okay.
opposite. So I've got the time over there, of course, which you don't have a choice right now.
Yeah.
And then I've got Siri, and I have no idea why I've not taken Siri off of my
Yeah, you
dock.
got to banish Siri. Get that out of there.
I know. In fact, there's a setting where it just doesn't show up there. I never trigger it. It's just wasted real estate. It's very small, cute icon, but I like Siri on my mobile devices. I like Siri dictation on my Mac, but I never use Siri on my Mac the way,
Yeah.
All right. Let's just keep bouncing back and forth. I've got more of it.
Okay.
What have you got next to your left?
Yeah. So up next for me is a relative newcomer called One Thing that lets you just put a string of text in your menu bar. This is different than some of the apps that let you run like scripts that put things in your menu bar. This is literally just a text field. And I have my theme. Last year was quarterly, but this year I did an annual theme. And I have it up there just as like a little billboard of like, hey, this is sort of your kind of your guiding post for the year. You want to keep that in mind as you make decisions, and that's been nice.
I like that. Cool. I've got a few more like utility types, starting from the right side. I've got that what does Apple call that? The slide down control
center.
Control center. Yeah, of course that's there. You don't really have a choice, but I do access it, and Wi-Fi, and then. So those are just the Apple ones. But the first substantive one I have, as I've already mentioned, is Fantastical. And I have it showing the current date, but I also have it showing some information. It always shows me the currently running appointment, or if there's not a currently running appointment, it shows me the next appointment.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that as I work through the day, because I time block, I can see, what's coming up in my dock. I also have the button switched where it puts the if there is a Zoom call or any type of online component to it, it puts the icon up there, and so you can kick off a Zoom call just by clicking the icon in the menu bar, which I do frequently. So Fantastical actually takes quite a bit of room. I'd say probably right now about 2 linear inches in my menu bar.
Yeah, that's such a nice feature of Fantastical. I know we talked about it on that episode a couple of weeks ago, but it is pretty sweet. Another newcomer for me in the last year or so is Elsewin, which is written by some folks that I know from the Relay members Discord. Elsewin is it's a iPhone, iPad app that runs on the Mac, and it gives you basically 2 tools. One, you can do a list of time zones. And so if I say that I'm going to have a blog post, say, hey, I'm going to stream at 10 a.m. Well, then I can use this to build a little list of well, that's 8 a.m. this time, 6 p.m. that time, and you can put little flags or emoji in there. And then it also creates short codes to use in Discord. So Discord has this really cool feature that if you have the right snippet of code and you put it in, so instead of typing out 4 p.m. on Thursday, I can go into Elsewin, I can make it set to 4 p.m. on Thursday, and then I can copy the little code and put that into my message in Discord. And what that does, everyone sees it in their local time zone in Discord. It is the coolest thing. Every application should steal this, mostly Slack. I would love to have this in Slack as well. And Elsewin does both of those things. My only complaint about this, and if the developers are listening, this is my official feedback, is the menu bar icon is humongous. It has their icon, but then it says Elsewin next to it. You don't need to take up the space of 3 other icons. You can just have your logo, and I promise you it's fine. But other than that complaint, Elsewin it's really useful because, I manage a big, ever growing Discord server, and being able to create those times and being courteous so people don't have to do the math themselves. I think that's important, and Elsewin makes it really easy.
Nice. Yeah, I have that one too, but it's under Bartender. The next one for me is currently Timing. I jump back and forth between Timery and Timing. Currently, I'm on a Timing kick. It's the thing about it. I mean, they're both very good, but if you because Timing does the tracking. In fact, we did a whole show on this. I don't need to go into this, right? But Timing does give you good data in terms of what was I doing on my Mac at this point. I spend so much time on my Mac, but I have the thing doing just like Timery, where it shows me my currently running timer, which is nice.
Yeah, and Timing was recently updated to be able to look at your screen time data, so you can get a fuller picture of maybe what you're doing on your other devices, which is cool.
Yeah.
What else? What else do you got?
I've got a bunch. One of the things that is out of the control center, I took the focus mode out. You can drag them out and put them on the menu bar.
Right.
And I have my currently running focus mode showing up right next to my timer. And I really like that. I can see right now I'm in podcast mode, and that's really great. And I can change it in the menu bar, and I find they're both informative and useful in terms of, changing my setups. So really great. And I recommend it. If you're into focus modes, put them in your menu bar separately.
Yeah, that's a neat trick, that if you have something you really use all the time and you don't want it buried in Control Center, you can pull them out like we used to be able to do, right? It used to be those were all separate things. So we would all have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and display and sound. And overall, I like the condensing of those things, but sometimes you do have something that is important enough that you want it out on its own.
I also am a big fan of an app called Drop Zone, which we've covered on the show in the past. Yeah. It's a little utility app where it does a couple things. First of all, it's like a shelf app. You can drag anything onto it and then paste it somewhere else, which is good if you do any type of production stuff. But it also, you can create special zones where you drop things. I've got one for my action folder, which is what gets processed by Hazel. So I just drag a folder or a file onto the drop zone icon and then onto the action folder, and that puts it in there. I have another one where it copies a file to my desktop if I want. I've got one called Burn Bag. If I put something in there, and then like a month later, it deletes the file. And so it's just like stuff that I send out that I don't want to keep. And it's just real convenient for that. Another thing I do with Dropzone is you can put things on the shelf, but you can lock them there. So like if you've got assets you use repeatedly, let's say you make sales presentations and you have a little logo file with your company logo on it or something, you put it in there and you lock it. And then any file you're in, you can just drag it out of Dropzone and put it right in there and it adds it right away. Like for someone that does stuff like me, like I've got all the frames for the various iOS devices when I'm screencasting, I can drag those in, a MacSparky logo and a couple other things. And the locking to the Dropzone is very convenient.
Yeah, Dropzone is super cool. I've used it on and off over the years, and it I mean, it seems so lame all of a sudden to open an FTP app and like go navigate through a bunch of folders.
Yeah.
Or to, have like a temporary folder somewhere. It's cool. One that I've been experimenting with since moving to my dual screen setup is Magnet. There's a bunch of window management apps on the Mac App Store or out on the internet. Moom is something that I used for a long time, but a friend of mine who lives the ultra wide lifestyle suggested Magnet for me, and I really just installed it like a week ago. I finally got around to doing it, and so I don't have a lot to say about it yet. I think at some point in this year, next year, we should maybe do like a window management roundup. But so far, Magnet has been pretty cool. It's got keyboard shortcuts, and you can activate by dragging. And you can kind of set up like, okay, I want these windows to split into thirds horizontally, or put these 4 windows in 4 quadrants on my display. So I feel like I've really just scratched the surface. So I really don't want to go too far into it here, but so far I would say the experiment has been going well.
Okay, we will do that show because I have a lot to say about Moom and I need more time.
Okay. Okay.
If you're listening, let us know your window management favorite apps and problems that you're facing. So when we get around to that show, we can help you out with that stuff. But my next one is Moom. So there you go. I'm using Moom. I also have right next to that the Opal software because I have that Opal camera. Mm-hmm. And it just, it's an overpriced webcam, but it does a really good job. And I go in there and make adjustments and tweaks to it all the time. Whether it's the color balance or the focal length or whatever. And so I just find myself in the app frequently enough that it justifies being in the menu bar.
Yeah. And I think it's one of those that has to run, and because it's like the controller app for the camera, and they're doing a lot of custom stuff that macOS doesn't have APIs for. And so that's one. It's like, oh, you got to run a web app for your webcam. Yeah. But it's a really good webcam. I've got the same thing going over here, and they're I think they've done a good job of really putting all of it in the menu bar. I mean, it's sort of a philosophy of development more than anything else. But some menu bar apps are really simple, right? They basically only exist there to get to the preferences. But others put like their whole UI up there, right? They have a lot of things, a lot of controls, and Opal is one that I think they've struck a good balance where I can very quickly go in and do something and kind of move about my day.
Yeah. Next to that, I have Drafts, because if I want to get some quick text, you can just click there and open Drafts and get that going. Next to that, I have Day One. I guess maybe that's an aspirational menu bar app, but I don't think it's aspirational. I've been writing in it for 10 years. So, but I do find myself, like, if something funny happens or whatever, I will just click the menu bar item and diary it right there. Just like, I kind of think of the Day One as my version of Twitter, but it's just to myself, so I can write whatever I want and it doesn't go out to the world. Mm-hmm. So I am constantly hitting that, and making multiple entries a day. So I just keep it in the menu bar.
Another one for me that we haven't touched on yet is Clean Shot X. I think Mike Hurley got you on board with. I know he got me on board with it.
Yep. Yeah. I'm in, baby.
Yeah, just a more powerful screenshotting tool. What's built into macOS is fantastic. In fact, it's better than it's ever been because they've added a lot of optionality to it and a new UI for it as of a couple of years ago. But CleanShot can do GIFs, record video. It has really good markup tools that go even above and beyond, I think, what Apple's own markup tools do. And you can, there's a cloud service you can attach to it and uploads your screenshots. I don't pay for that part of it. I just use the Mac app itself. And it's fantastic. I mean, my favorite thing about it is there's a setting to set a custom wallpaper behind any screenshots. And it means if you have a blog post or something you're putting together, all of your screenshots can kind of match. And it can hide the things on your desktop and really tidy up screenshots for you automatically. If you have a job or a hobby or something where you're doing a lot of screenshots, like documentation or blogging or something like that, this thing has saved me so much time in the 6 months I've been running it that I feel like it's already paid for itself.
Yeah. And this is part of SetApp. So I'm already paying for it, just like Bartender, know? So that makes it so much easier. But the one of the things I really like about this app is the hiding the desktop stuff, because I do a lot of recording, and the app also has excellent support for shortcuts. So I wrote a custom shortcut for hide the desktop, and I've been mentioning this whole show that I have a script I run when I start recording. Well, it hides the dock. It changes the menu bar to Dozer. Another thing it does is it runs that little keyboard shortcut to hide all the dock items using CleanShot X. So I'm sorry, hide all the desktop items using CleanShot X. So it's just with just a few keystrokes, I'm really able to just really set the stage. And this is one of the pieces of that for me. Another one this one's new to me, but I've been really liking it, is Loom. Loom. It's a little online video service. You can make a quick video showing somebody how to do something. You can use it to record your screen or just your face. And I am using it a lot. With my team, when I'm saying, hey, next time we have a customer with this problem, this is how you fix it. And I just make a video and I share it with the right people, and they can watch the video now, or they can watch it 6 months from now if they have to do it again. Even when I get emails sometimes from Labs members with something that needs a little more explanation, rather than try and write a long email, I'll just shoot a quick video and send it to them with Loom. And I've been pretty happy with this little service. And I'm a ScreenFlow expert, and I can do really great screencasts, but this is a really quick, run and gun kind of shoot a video and send it out thing.
I think what's cool about it is that it strikes me, and I've only played with it, but it strikes me as a good middle ground between trying to do something in QuickTime, which is really straightforward and easy, versus the full ScreenFlow capture process, right? So it's kind of that sweet in between. It's something that's been on my radar since you've been playing with it, and I don't know if I've got a problem that it solves, but it's definitely something in the back of my mind of, if I come across something where this fits, I'm definitely going to try it.
Yeah, I'm a fan. You got more?
I do. It just keeps on going. Another one that I think a lot of people will know and love is Rocket, which lets you do Slack-style emoji where you type a colon in the name of the emoji. It lets you do it anywhere. Now, this has been, I think... I feel like the importance of this, it's an emoji picker. The importance of this has come and gone over the years, because with the touch bar, you had emoji there really easily. And then you have the globe key now on sort of more modern keyboards that you can map to different things. But Rocket has stuck with me because the idea of typing a colon and then starting to type the name of an emoji has just stuck with me because I use Slack all day, every day. And it's a little free menu bar app, and sits up there. And it has some other cool stuff where you can put in symbols. You can do your own GIFs, and it puts those in. So there's quite a few things you can do with Rocket, but I'm a big fan.
Cool. Home Control. It's a great little app to let you turn lights off and on that you have connected to your HomeKit. It also it has some automation tricks in it where you can turn things off and on. So I keep that in the menu bar and use it frequently.
Yeah, home control is awesome. One I think that I am definitely newer to, because it replaced something that I ran for a long time, is an app called Reflex. And we've talked about this before, I'm sure. The annoyance that you and I both have that the media transport keys on the keyboard, back, play, pause, and forward, will control whatever media is playing. And it used to be those were basically like hardwired into iTunes or to music, and that's not the case anymore. And I used a couple of different open source projects over the years to change that back, and they all died off. And then I came across Reflex, which is a really simple menu bar app that basically takes those media keys and sticks them directly to music. Or if you're a Spotify listener, you can select Spotify. And so even if I've got a YouTube video and something playing in messages and who knows what else, if I hit F8, which is play pause on my keyboard, it's going to play pause music. That's always what I want. And I mean, I think because I came up in the era of iTunes, those buttons control the music app. They don't do anything else in my mind. And so Reflex lets me fix that. And I was glad to come across it because what I was using quit working a couple of years ago, and I was kind of bummed. And I was looking at like, well, I could do it in Keyboard Maestro probably. Like maybe there's another way to do it, but then the function keys are kind of different than other keys in some ways. But Reflex just takes care of it for me.
There have been times in my life where you have been like the stand-up guy for me and like helped me out of sticky situations or just been my friend. And the day you taught me about this app, that's one of them. I love it so much. But that's the reason I spent the morning writing this Apple script, because I also want to have independent control of volume in music, which you don't get with Reflex. But either way, it's cool. And I installed this app and I never thought twice about it. I just love having it. Thank you for the referral on that. Another one in my menu bar, and now I'm getting to the section that's beyond bartender, the stuff that's in the hidden area.
Okay.
Everything so far has been kind of shown, but now I'm beyond it, where the bartender thing drops down. But parcel, I switched to parcel from deliveries about a year ago, and because it has that Amazon thing, and it's cool. And once in a while, I want to see when my packages are coming.
Parcel's awesome. If you are looking for a delivery app in the Apple ecosystem, it has I love it. Very straightforward, very clean. But the trick it had, like you said, is you can sign to Amazon with it. And then it pulls your incoming Amazon shipments. And it even has I think it's an option, but you can say move to next carrier. So very often something will start with Amazon and then maybe move to like the post office. Well, it can update itself to follow the new tracking number. And man, Parcel is so useful. I use deliveries for years and years, and it seems like kind of that app's lost some steam. But Parcel's awesome. And yeah, it's great on the Mac. I don't have it in the menu bar, but it's something that I open with Alfred definitely pretty often.
Yeah, nice app. Another one for me is the ScreenFlow recording tools.
Yeah.
I just keep those open because I'm always making changes. And that's just where you decide, am I going to record my mic or just my screen or my screen and my camera? But, for my job, it's useful.
You do a lot of it. I think what's left on our list, we basically share except for one that jumped out at me on your list, and that is Bunch, which I think we've talked about before. But could you give us like an overview of what Bunch does?
Yeah, we've talked about this one on the Automators quite a bit. It's Brett Terpstra made an app that lets you use a text file as a setup and launcher app, where you can open certain applications and run Apple scripts and do things. And I actually do this with Keyboard Maestro, and I've done it years with it, but I'm trying to use Bunch more. So I put it in the menu bar just so again, it's aspirational. I'm just trying to figure out, is Bunch better at this than Keyboard Maestro? And I haven't decided yet. So that one is there, but not a whole lot more to say about it at this point.
Okay. Well, yeah, keep us posted on that if you end up moving into it more. It's one of those applications, like the idea of it's really interesting, but I kind of don't know what I would do, what I would do with it that I'm not already doing elsewhere.
Yeah, well, the whole idea of setups is a great idea, where you automatically configure your computer for the type of work you're doing, keep you in context. I think it's really a useful tool, and this is just another way to do it. And I think different ways land with different people. But
Mhm.
Brett's made a really simple way to do it, and because it's Brett, it's going to be very well updated and maintained. It's going to be reliable.
We each have sort of the MPU Hall of Famers, right? We've
Yeah.
got we got Hazel, and we've got Text Expander and Better Touch Tool and Keyboard Maestro. All those apps we talk about all the time. I think we're both running basically all of them all the time.
One point I want to make about Text Expander is I keep it hidden on the bartender, like on the secondary list, because I've really come to find that the best way for me to use Text Expander, because I have so many snippets, is the search menu. They've got a setting in the setting where you can set a key term or a keyboard shortcut to open a Text Expander search. So if you can't remember a snippet, which is what I used to use the menu bar app to find, I just hit Control Option Command I, and it opens the menu for me, and I can just search it. So as a result, I don't need it really in my menu bar as much as I used to.
Yeah, I use search and text expander all the time too. It's like I've got some that I need to use once a quarter, and I can never remember what what I set them to. I just go in there and search for something, and then I'm set. This episode of Mac Power Users is made possible by Indeed. If you are looking to hire, you want to trust your gut. But what if you could give your gut a little extra help? When you want to find top talent fast, you need Indeed. It is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire in one place. So don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. And if you hate waiting, Indeed's US data shows that over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job. Instant Match really is incredible. Candidates you invite to apply through Instant Match are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see it in search, according to US Indeed data. Join more than the 3 million businesses worldwide using Indeed to hire great talent fast. Indeed knows that when you're doing everything for your company, you can't afford to overspend on hiring. So visit Indeed.com/MPU to start hiring now. That's INDEED. Indeed.com/MPU. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing is not available for everyone. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Our thanks to Indeed for the support of the show and Relay FM.
All right. We've covered the dock. We've covered the menu bar. We haven't talked about our startup apps, though. What are you using to launch when you start up your Mac?
Yeah, so I think this is basically an addendum on top of what's in my menu bar, at least. Everything in my menu bar auto launches. Most of them are just menu bar apps, so I'm not getting like application windows and stuff opening. But the most important thing I think that I launch at startup is Alfred, which is my launcher choice. We did a roundup of it and some others a while back now, probably a couple years. And with Alfred 5, which we talked about adding a lot of niceties in terms of automation, it just continues to be the launcher of choice for me. And it launches automatically at login. I run it headless, so no menu bar icon, no dock icon. And it's taken over Command Space for me even. So Spotlight, I don't even know what Spotlight is. Maybe like Command Option Space, or maybe it doesn't even have a shortcut anymore. But Alfred 5 is, it's like the single app I probably touch the most on my Mac.
Yeah, agreed. And that's the first one that loads for me too.
Yeah.
A couple that I have that load that weren't in the menu bar discussion, Daniel Jalkut's Fast Scripts. Mm-hmm. I think that's if you do Apple scripting, that one is golden. So I have that one load for me.
Yeah. Fast Scripts basically puts your your scripts like front and center in a menu bar app. And they do the thing that TextExpander does, where he has put a search field at the top of the drop down. So if you
Yeah.
have a lot of these things, you can very quickly filter down to what you're looking for. Fast Scripts is awesome.
What else do you have?
I've got Carbon Copy Cloner, which is what I use for my nightly clone of my desktop, and then a couple other things on my laptop. They have a dashboard that basically runs and checks for updates and stuff, but then it also will like my backup is set on a schedule, right? So it keeps up with the time and launches the backup and then quits it and all that stuff. So it launches in the background, and I don't have it. I'm running it at Hellas as well. It's not in the menu bar, but something that runs every night. And Carbon Copy Cloner just kind of hanging out in the background, waiting for 2 a.m. or whatever it is, and then will clone my boot drive for me.
I've got a couple like quality of life improvement utilities, Default Folder X and PopClip that I have as startup items. And Default Folder X, we've talked about it before, but it improves the save dialog box, allows you to add tags and frequent folders. Just a nice little upgrade. It's called Default Folder X because it was back on Next. I mean, this app goes back a long way.
Yeah.
But they continue to update it and make it nice, and they evolve with the changes in Mac OS. So it's a really good app. I like it. And then PopClip takes that feature from the iPhone where when you select text, it gives you options like contextual options to do things like turn it into title case or go search it on Google. There's just there's actually a plugin architecture now, so there's a lot of different things you can do with it. But I like having that running, and anytime my Mac is running and PopClip isn't working, I inevitably run into a block wall somewhere.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm not a big PopClip user. I don't have it installed currently. It's something I check out every so often. But what is neat about it is the large library of extensions, so you can really build out exactly what you need. Like I'm looking through this now. Like I had no idea they were like translator plugins, which is really cool. So you can look up. Like take your text and open it in Google Translate on the web or a bunch of different tools. It's pretty cool. I need to give this one another run, I think.
The one I use the most is Title Case when I write things for the internet and I dictate them. I just go select it with the mouse and then PopClip shows up and I click the Title Case button and it's done. It's the fastest way I know to do that. Scan Snap Manager, that's when I begrudgingly, I mean, it's like, it's a utility for hardware, but I still use my Scan Snap. And when I turn it on, I like it to work. I don't want to have to go over and load it up. And it doesn't seem to cause too much trouble in the background. So I just leave it running.
Yeah, I pulled up their website, and the first thing is like a really passive aggressive note about other people using their names and how they shouldn't use their name. It's like, okay. Loopback is another Rogue Amoeba application that I used to not run all that often unless we were doing like a live show or something. But I wanted to run audio through both studio displays at the same time if I'm listening to music. And Loopback lets me do that. So I wrote a blog post at the beginning of the year. I'll put it in the show notes of how to do this. And so basically you take both the studio displays and set them as outputs at the same time, because macOS lets you only choose one and not both. And it sounds awesome listening to music through two studio displays. And it was really easy to set up. And so Loopback just launches at login. I have my default audio output to be that Loopback device, and which is basically like a virtual sound device. And then I have music or whatever come out of both my displays. And I was trying to think of how to do this. It's like, Loopback can do it. And it's been awesome. It just runs in the background. Doesn't cause any trouble. Even with, moving between multiple audio devices, right? Because my interface that I used to record on isn't always on, right? So when I turn it on, then macOS switches my input and output automatically. And when I'm done and turn it off, loop back, takes back over, and I have audio out of both my speakers. And it's one of those apps like it's very specific, but if you have audio routing needs, it's really the only thing that I found on the Mac that can do what it can do.
Quick rabbit hole. How do you like your dual studio display lifestyle?
It's awesome. I'm really enjoying it. I mean, it's really awesome right now. I have our show notes in front of me and the CMS and like the links we're talking about. On the other screen, I have our Zoom call and our recording and timery and reminders, and like being able to separate things out without having to use spaces so much is something I'm digging, and I've been really happy with it.
Good.
So many pixels.
Yeah, it's a lot of pixels. I'm
There's a
still
lot of
pretty
pixels.
good with. I have this amazing monitor. I think I'm probably going to stick with it. But yeah, I hope I get a lot of years out of it though.
Yeah, yeah. Another one that I'll throw in here is Clean My Mac X from our friends at MacPaw. Of course, it's in SetApp because they also run SetApp. But I really keep it on my Macs for malware detection, and I don't run like a separate antivirus, but like there's some adware stuff that I've come across before, and some of its other sort of cleanup stuff that it can do. I like. There's a lot of utilities in this category that I would not recommend you try, but Clean My Mac X is awesome, and they're previous sponsor, as are a bunch of these other companies today. Like that doesn't have any impact on what we choose to use personally. But I found this to be useful. And so it sticks around as a login item. And every once in a while, it's like, hey, it's time to check out your machine. And I let it do its thing. And then I move on.
Yeah, I just find it does a really good job of all the tedious work of cleaning your Mac for you. And again, I'm always interested in apps that are actively developed by people that seem to be concerned about constantly making it better. And that's the impression I get from these folks. Back when we used to all meet each other, back before COVID.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that. Anything else on your startup list?
We haven't talked at all today about Dropbox. I have had a kind of sorted past. I'm not a big fan of the Dropbox app. I feel like it's resource heavy. It does a lot of stuff under the hood that I wish it didn't do. I tried to use Maestral for a while. That was like a open source third party app. It was like a minimal Dropbox thing. But a couple times I got an email from Steven or Jim saying, hey, the file isn't there in Dropbox. And I'm like, well, that's funny because I put it there. And, something went wrong with my third party Dropbox app. Anyway, so I decided I wasn't going to let that happen again. So I just bit the bullet and installed Dropbox. Now that loads when I log in and, it's in the menu bar. And I just tried not to think about the fact that I've got this app running. And maybe I'm not being fair to it. With Apple Silicon, I don't think it's as big of a problem. But I also feel like the Dropbox company should do a better job with this app. And I happen to know there's a few of them that listen to the show. And every time I say the bad things, I hear from them. But it just feels a little ponderous, and I'm not sure why.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I use it. It's in my startup and in my menu bar. There's a transition going on right now with Dropbox. My laptop has updated, but my desktop has not, where to be compatible with a change made like 2 years ago in macOS. They're moving the contents of your Dropbox folder out of wherever you stored it. Mine was just in the root level of my home folder to, some buried container folder somewhere. And then it puts a shortcut basically where it used to be. And you can still add it to your sidebar in the Finder, which is really all I care about because that's how I get to it a lot. But I've had that happen on one machine, but not the other. And I guess they're slowly rolling that out. That was pretty smooth on my laptop. It moved everything and like re-indexed, and it was done within a little bit of time. But I agree with you. It feels like Dropbox as a company is more interested in like new features for businesses, and I get it. Like that pays the bills. But I feel like people who are just like using it to sync files and folders with coworkers, I feel like a little left out from the attention that we used to get, especially on the Mac, and I find that frustrating.
I mean, and there's a couple other things going on, right? I mean, number one is that's the way it used to be. It used to be super fast and efficient and super minimal. But that's what happens when you become a publicly traded company. You have to grow the business, and you've got to find other ways to do that, and blah blah blah. But also, I feel like if Apple did a better job with iCloud and everything just magically worked the way it does with Dropbox, and they made it easier to get more storage and cheaper, we'd all be just using that. And
Yeah.
So there's plenty of blame to go around here. But yeah, I am. I've kind of got you actually inspired me to say, look, just install Dropbox and don't think about it anymore. I mean, I've got this Mac that is blindingly fast. If I'm going to have an inefficient app on it, I'm not going to notice it. And I'm running the ScanSnap manager, which probably is just as bad.
Yeah, who knows what that thing's doing?
Yeah, exactly. So I just feel like it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, I get it. If iCloud Drive gave me control over, I always want these folders local, I never want these folders local, that'd probably be enough, because I do have some shared iCloud Drive folders now with people, and the syncing seems reliable. It's just a matter of, is that file going to be local or not? And it's something because I have so much in Dropbox, something I actually really care about. But I also use Dropbox as the back end, for instance, for DevonThink. So let's see, I do this every once in a while on the show, and people, I think, recoil in fear. But my 147 gigabytes of DevonThink databases sync via Dropbox, and that's been bulletproof. And it's been sort of like the underlying fabric of my compute life for a long time. I think that's why I get frustrated with it sometimes. Like I do wish the app was better. I do wish they were more responsive to changes on the Mac. I do wish I had, finer control over certain things. But at the end of the day, there's nothing else that really fits the bill like Dropbox for me, at least. And so I kind of feel stuck there, which is a bummer, but there are worse things, I guess.
At what point does Apple archives just start calling you and asking questions?
I don't know.
I'm not sure they have a database that big.
Hit me up. I could tell you a lot about the Lisa, all sorts of stuff. It had rectangular pixels, David. It was a weird computer.
This episode of the Mac Power Users is brought to you by Electric. Go to electric.ai/MPU and unbury yourself from IT tasks. Moreover, you get a free pair of Beats Solo 3 wireless headphones when you schedule a qualifying meeting at that link, electric.ai/MPU. Now, when leading your small business, it's not all glamour. In fact, sometimes it's a matter of spending hours trying to find a laptop that's lost in the mail for a new hire, or dealing with some other technical emergency, which you're well equipped to deal with. You're a Mac Power user. Of course you can handle that stuff, but maybe you shouldn't be. The team over at Electric knows small businesses, maybe like yours, face these challenges, and that's why they've solved the problem for you by operating as your IT department. Instead of spending your time sorting through unused application licenses, setting up employee laptops, and answering never-ending IT questions from your team, you can build your empire and let Electric handle the rest. With Electric acting as your IT department, you can get back to what you're good at. Plus, you get a really cool IT platform to see and manage everything. Now, I have been in the position that you are thinking about right now. I was the IT guy at my law firm, even though I wasn't paid as it, even though at the end of the year, when they figured out my bonus, they never took that into account. It was just a thing that I did, and it kept me from doing my work. And you're probably in the same position. Sometimes your ability and your Mac Power user superpowers actually get in the way, and you should not let that happen with your small business. I wish I had Electric back in those days, and you should get it right now. For Mac Power Users listeners, Electric is offering a free pair of Beats Solo 3 headphones for taking a qualifying meeting. Just go to electric.ai/MPU. Once again, that's electric.ai/MPU. Go there now. Get your free pair of Beats Solo 3 wireless headphones just for scheduling a meeting. And our thanks to Electric for their support of the Mac Power Users.
So before we go, I did want to talk a little bit about startup apps in Ventura, because I think Apple in the new version of macOS wanted to clarify what was actually happening when you logged into your computer. But I think they made it more confusing in the way that they did it. My first point here is really just a complaint that in the old system preferences, your startup items were listed with your user, which made a ton of sense to me, right? It's like, okay, this is my user, and these are the login items associated with that user. But in system settings, it's under general and then login items, which structurally makes me think, oh, are these opening for everybody? Well, no. If you log in as a different user, the list is different. Why is it in general then? I don't know. Who knows? I certainly don't know. But that's really just like a top level complaint. That's not really my point to this. But as I was writing this out, I thought, why is this where it is? I don't understand. But if you're in Ventura and you go to general login items, you get an overview of everything happening on your Mac. And at the top of it, there's two sections. The two sections also, they don't look the same. Some of the lower one has toggles. The upper one has like the plus and minus buttons. Why are they different? Again, who knows?
Yeah.
I honestly a lot of people are writing things with like Chat GPT, and it sounds, it's like, oh, a human almost wrote this, but not quite all the way. Maybe Chat GPT laid out system settings. I don't know. But the top section are applications that open at login. So things like Alfred, CleanShot-X, Dropbox, Keyboard Maestro, right? That's kind of what you'd normally think of. Like, this is an application that's running probably in my menu bar. Maybe it's just a regular application that open at login, right? And that's what we had in the old system, was basically just this top section. Okay, for instance, I want Safari to open every time I log in. Well, I can add it to this list. And when I log in, Safari will launch, right? Straightforward, easy to understand, and pretty easy to manage, right? You can add things, you can remove them. Although like 3 of mine don't have app icons next to them. I don't know what's going on with that, but pretty straightforward. And I think, okay, it's good to carry that forward, right? An easy way to manage that, even if it's in a weird place in system settings.
But
where this gets weird is the section they added in Ventura. And again, I think the idea was good to give you a better view of what was happening on your system. So the new section is called Allow in Background. And I'm just going to read you what the helper text says. Applications add background items to perform tasks when the application isn't open, such as checking for software updates or syncing data. Turning off a background item may prevent these tasks from being completed. So, an example in my list here is Adobe Creative Cloud, right? That is an application that's running all the time on my Mac because I pay for Creative Cloud because I use Photoshop and Illustrator and InDesign and all these others. And it has a background app or service that's running all the time. And if I uncheck it, I assume all those apps will explode. But, and maybe, I'm willing to couch this in, the system's only been out a few months, and maybe it's just going to take time for everyone to catch up. But as it stands today, as when we're talking about this list is really confusing, I think, in some like fundamental ways. I'm not sure that people, even with the helper text, really understand the differences between this is an application, this is a program that's running, and this is a part of an application or a service that's running. For example, let's take CleanShot-X. It's running in the top list because it opens at login, but it's also on the bottom list. I assume because they're running some sort of service all the time to listen for keyboard shortcuts. I don't know that, but my guess is that's what that allow in background is about. But if I look at this as a user, I'm going to say, oh, well, I don't need it in both places. I'll just uncheck one of them. Well, then the app doesn't work the way you expect it to. And maybe that's on the developers at CleanShot-X to make that more clear. But I think Apple, in their desire to make things more transparent, which again, I think is a good thing, I think is a little confusing. And I think it's complicated by the fact that it is new. And so, like, I have com.microsoft.office.licensing.helper running, and it says item from an unidentified developer. Well, that's probably Microsoft. Microsoft should probably update that and be ready to go. But they're not yet. And so I have this like weird thing in my weird and honestly kind of scary thing if I'm just a normal user
Yeah.
in my login items. I don't know. I find it sort of frustrating. I wonder if I'm alone in that. What do you think?
No, you're not alone. I mean, knowing we were going to talk about this today, I spent like an hour trying to like get to the bottom of what these do and don't do. And honestly, I didn't get there because I don't think anybody knows outside of Cupertino. I did an experiment with the One Thing app, the menu bar app that allows you to put some words in your menu bar. That's all. It's a very simple app, right? But it has a background checkbox in it. What is it doing in the background? It's just an app that puts some text in my menu bar. So just for giggles, I turned it off in background, but then I'm running it in my menu bar and it works fine.
Yeah.
So, and I can also open it up and change the text. So I don't know what is going on in the background, but it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And I turned it off and it doesn't seem to have mattered. And then like the Microsoft stuff you were mentioning, Microsoft has like 4 or 5 of them. And I think they all relate to updates, right? But one of the beauties of taking a 30-year career and throwing it overboard for me was that I don't have to be using Microsoft Word every day anymore. So I thought, well, I'll just turn off the auto updater. But it wants me to give my system login credentials to turn that off. Like they've got like double secret probation here, where they've got an extra layer where you can't just turn it off. You've got to type in your system password. And I don't really understand rhyme or reason of what these all are doing. And I think Apple needs to be more transparent, and I think there needs to be like communication with developers where like you should be able to click on it. It says we need background for this, in human language, what they're doing. I've got one here for Corsair memory. I'm like,
yeah, me too.
Well, what the heck is that?
I don't know.
Is it some? I've got an OWC drive attached, and I'm thinking, well, is this something to my? Because there's also com.owc.driveguide.helper. So it's like, I don't know what that's doing, but I've got an OWC drive that I back up to, and I don't want to mess that up. Interestingly, that one does have an information button. And if I open it, it takes me to a terminal window showing me launch daemons. I mean, this is completely unhelpful.
Yeah.
So I just think that this needs work. In some ways, it's better in the sense that, like in the old user login, it was misleading as well, because if you just you weren't necessarily deleting it as a login item the way it was structured. I don't remember the exact thing. Like if you hit the negative button, it didn't necessarily go away. Or no, there was a checkbox next to each one. And people would say, well, I'll just uncheck it, right? And then they would think that was all they had to do to turn it off. And that's not. You actually had to delete it with the negative item. Now I remember. So they got rid of that confusion with the old one. But I'm with you. And I just think that this is something that is early days. And, this is a symptom of a bigger problem with the system preferences that they need more work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And maybe it's fixable if Apple enforced, okay, if you're going to be in here, you need to have a little line of text about what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Some of them have the little information button and it will open it in Finder. So like update or startup utility, item from unidentified developer. I hit it and of course it's Adobe. It's like, okay, fine. I get it. Adobe's kind of bad at this stuff. So it is what it is. But I think in its current state, it just leads to a lot of confusion. And if you really want to see what these things are, like out in Finder, they could be in your launch agents folder in your user, or in the system library, or in launch daemons in the system library. So like things can be scattered. And I think Apple's trying to put it all in one place to give us more control. And again, I applaud that. I just think that this needs some more time. And I'm hopeful that through policy and hopefully some improvements to the UI, this can become actually a really useful tool. Like, what actually is running on my computer? More importantly, what is it doing? Right? Like you mentioned, the ones like, well, I turned it off and nothing changed. Well, probably shouldn't be in there, right? It probably doesn't need to be in there. And having some recognition of that and giving the user tools to make informed decisions is important. And right now, I feel like any decisions I make about this aren't really fully informed unless I just go do a bunch of research on my own.
Yeah, and so I think we're in agreement. This is a step in the right direction, but the cake is not done baking, and a lot will be revealed to us in June. Like if at WWDC we find a bunch of improvements to the system settings. I always forget the name of it now because they changed it. Yeah, system set. If we find a bunch of changes and stuff like this starts getting cleaned up, we'll know that they just weren't done when they shipped it last year. And hopefully we get improvements to that. But yeah, I agree with you that this is something that is difficult to understand. And I'm not sure it's understandable at this time because I think a lot of the stuff in here is here under different conditions and for different reasons. So it doesn't mean the same thing that Microsoft is here and one thing is here.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess we'll keep an eye out for that this summer.
Yeah, I have a couple in here that I'm like completely clueless as to what these are. like Guillermo Rambo is in here.
Yeah. So that's one thing I saw some developers complaining about is that they'd automatically label instead of the app name the developer name.
Yeah.
Which is
I
not
think that because he made that little, I think it's an AirBuddy. He made a little app that I bought from him that allows me to quickly attach headphones. I don't know, but it's just got his name here with no explanation of what that's about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, there's work to be done.
There is.
All right, we are the Mac Power Users. You can find us at relay.fm/MPU. You can find the forums at talk.macpowerusers.com. We want to thank our sponsors today, TextExpander, Indeed, and Electric, and we'll see you next time.